Hello, and thank you for taking your time to watch this video on how to license your students with Adobe software. My name is David Grant, and I am the Software Solutions Manager here at Academia. Today, we're going to go through a few slides, just covering off the following agenda. We'll do brief introductions. We will touch on the driving forces as to why we're seeing a growth in demand for Adobe student licenses. We'll touch on eligibility, which can be really key at reducing cost and ensuring we're licensing in the right manner. Before we delve into the license options and applicable promotions that are available at the moment. We'll have a couple of examples just to help digest the information we've supplied, and then there will be a quick slide on some of the value-added services that can help reduce some time and add value back to your organisation as well. So we are Adobe's largest educational reseller in the UK and have been for many years. Only one of 9 Adobe Platinum partners in the UK, which means we have access to the highest and best buy price from Adobe. And in addition, we are only one of 4 Adobe Education Elite partners, which means we have access to additional resource and insight from Adobe as well. At the bottom of this slide, there are some generic contact details that come through to the software team, although feel free to reach out to us or your account manager directly. This whole presentation is quite high level, so more than happy to talk about your specific challenges in some more depth. So driving forces are probably fairly self-evident. If you're watching this, then you'll probably know this already, but just to reiterate, COVID has obviously had a huge impact on many businesses, and education are absolutely not excluded from that, which has resulted in many having to look at hybrid teaching, the ability to deliver teaching from home, students studying from home. And that often means that students need to have access to course systems and applications, including products like Adobe. One of the challenges with Adobe software is you cannot virtualize or provide remote access through device licenses. So most education establishments will currently have shared device licenses or device licenses, which entitle you to install them on any on-premise machine, and any staff or student can then wander up and utilize that machine and the applicable software. Absolutely brilliant, but if students and staff cannot physically get to those machines, there is no compliant manner in which we can provide access to that software. So we've seen a huge surge in demand for named user or student licenses. And again, hopefully this video will give you clarity as to what your options are and what that might mean for you as well. So eligibility is a really important one. This is really key, and there's something that's been recently confirmed and clarified by Adobe, which I think has worked out to the benefit of the education sector. And we need to understand that the licensing model and the way Adobe view education very much stems from the US, who kind of put education into 2 pots, where you have K-12 and HED. And K-12 quite nicely maps over to our school sector. HED maps very nicely over to universities and the HE sector here. But FE in particular, and at times K-12 and at times HED, will have students and scenarios where they may qualify for an alternative license model. Colleges in particular, we've found, have been able to save quite a significant amount of money, as many have been procuring HED licenses, whereas they're actually eligible for K-12 at times. So what is the eligibility? This table on the right is supposed to give the answers, but conscious it has lots of words and examinations and qualifications, many of which I've never heard of before. But fundamentally, the blue box at the top has levels 1, 2, and 3. And at the highest level 3, we're talking about qualifications such as A-levels, GNVQs. Everything in this blue box, any students studying these types of qualifications are deemed K-12 by Adobe, and therefore can justify schools pricing, which is significantly more cost effective than higher education. If the students are doing degrees or BTEC, HNCs, HNDs, these are deemed level 4, or potentially doing something in level 5, and they are subject to higher educational pricing. So again, good for you to understand where your student population fits. And if you're in a scenario where you may have a mix of both, do not worry, that's absolutely fine. We are fundamentally licensing students, and we can have a mixed licensing model for your estate. So VIP licensing options. VIP is an annual licensing agreement that offers prorated co-term licenses. It's probably one of the most flexible licensing models, and it's where some of the new promotions and probably best models to license your establishment fall under. Again, more than happy to discuss alternative models, but this is probably the most current one, and the one that should be most applicable for you. So we'll quickly just look at device licenses versus names. So I've touched on this a little bit already. So device licenses are probably what you have already, or shared device licenses. And as you can see from this table, you get all the same desktop applications, all the core components are absolutely included. But the one thing you don't get, or the main thing you don't get, is the at-home use and BYOD support, which is available for named and student license packs. So again, this just reiterates that whilst the device license is great for on-premise use, if we're delivering remote access or hybrid teaching, then we need to consider a model for licensing people instead. If you are still on device as well, it's worth noting that you will need to migrate to shared device license. There's no cost for that. Again, give us a shout if that is your situation, and we'll be more than happy to try and help you through. So named users, as I've mentioned, this is really what the focus of this video is around. How do we license users? And a named user license model has been available for many years. And the reason why most establishments have chosen to license devices as opposed to users is that, one, you'll have more users than devices. And historically, a named user has been more expensive than a device. So it was fundamentally far more cost effective to license devices as opposed to named users. Adobe have now also introduced a student license pack, which came out this calendar year, and is subject to a promotion, which I'll touch on in a couple of slides' time as well. The main difference with a student license pack as opposed to the named user, you still get the ability to use it at home. And again, both named user and student license packs can also be installed on-premise machines, and only the licensed users can use those. So far more flexibility. But the main difference between a named user and a student license pack is probably just storage, which we don't find as much of an issue for customers. A named user gets 100 gigs, whereas a student license only has 50 gigs. And the only other differences really come down to the pricing and the entry points. So it's far more cost effective to get a student license pack per user as it is a named user. And there is a minimum order quantity, which says 150 here, but we'll touch on the promotions in a moment. In fact, on the very next slide, which touched on some changes, positive changes to help us on that front. Something else that you can do under a VIP agreement is you can license a single application. So you may not want to give students the full suite. They may just be studying photography and they only need Photoshop, for example. And under a VIP agreement, you can license just a single application. I do need to caveat that. So single apps are not available for any K-12 options, and single apps are not available under student license pack either. So you can get single apps under named user and single apps under shared device licenses. Again, good thing to consider if you're looking at ways of reducing costs, but we do find most curriculum courses that require Adobe software, there's often more than one application required, and that normally justifies moving to the full Creative Cloud. Another benefit I'd like to think under the VIP agreement is it's a prorated co-termed agreement. So a common way of benefiting from that would be to, for example, start a VIP agreement on July the 1st, but not order your student license until September the 1st. And on that basis, instead of ordering for 12 months, you're ordering only for 10 months, but you're ensuring you're only licensed over the period you need the software. It's just a more efficient manner in procuring and owning that or utilizing that software. So really good to be aware of how the start dates works and how that might benefit you. Even more of importance if you're running Adobe over particular semesters. So it may only be needed for 4 to 6 months, for example. Minimum order quantities are something you need to be wary of as well. So all K-12 options, both named and device options, all have a minimum order quantity because the unit cost is so low. And also, as I've alluded to, the student license pack also has a minimum order quantity, which leads me very nicely onto this slide, which talks about some current promotions. And the first one is the student license pack, which has a minimum order quantity, which has come down from 150 to 100. So if you are looking at named users, once you get to around 60-ish, you're probably better off buying 100 of the student pack. slightly more cost effective and you're going to get more licenses for it. In addition, the price has come down, so it's probably around a 20% price reduction. Again, this is all COVID related, and these are set to expire probably end of November 2020. In addition, there is the ability, and this is on or by exception only. So if you have a VIP agreement already and you have device or shared device licenses which are coming up for renewal, get in touch, because as part of your renewal, we may be able to get an exception process which entitles you to some new named user licenses as part of your renewal. It's rare we find that covers the entire or the full requirement from the customer, but can be a really good way of reducing cost and providing better access. Access to level 4 is applicable, something we've been able to offer for a few years. A VIP agreement is tiered from levels 1 to 4. The higher the level, the lower the price, i.e. level 4 is the highest possible discount available. And we have the ability to ensure that all customers can access level 4 pricing irrespective of the quantity you're purchasing. So we'll go into some examples here. Before I go into anything, I need to probably call out the caveat. So the pricing here is all very indicative and has been rounded. Please come to us for any formalised quotes and we'll be more than happy to send those over to you. And also on the single application, so the second option on each of these examples is a VIP named single app. The indicative price for that is based on a product like Photoshop or Premiere Pro. Acrobat is more, but other applications like Rush can be less. So again, speak to us on case by case, but hopefully these examples and these figures should help give you some indicative figures to identify the implications to you guys. So we'll go through the first option. So the example here is a education establishment who have gone through the eligibility and have identified that their entire student population, all 3,000, qualify for K-12 licensing. Absolutely brilliant. The fourth option, and it's with the black background, is the only one that's available to K-12, or only K-12 can qualify for this. This does have a high minimum order quantity of 500, but a unit cost of around £5. That's fairly low. So for this establishment, they could procure 3,000 K-12 licenses for 1 year at around £15,000. Example 2 looks at a hybrid scenario where the establishment has identified a high need or high numbers from their K-12 population of 2,000 and a need to license 88 students that qualify as HED based on their levels of study. So we'll start with the 2,000 because it's almost a quick line. So great, we throw 2,000 in there and we get a very rounded indicative number. That covers all of those students. Then separately, these 88, the reason these are in red is just to show you the number. That number doesn't total up in here. But 88 single named user licenses, that unit cost come in at over £18,500. It's absolutely valid. And as I mentioned earlier, once you get to around 60, you want to start looking at the student pack. That's where the price break starts to make this more attractive. So in this example, you could buy 88 named user licenses for HED for over 18.5 grand, or, and a no-brainer, you could buy 100 of the student pack and you'll be saving around £5,000. So about £5,000 saving, 12 extra licenses, absolute no-brainer. So for this option, and we've tallied up the last two numbers here to get to 23.5 grand, and probably the most cost-effective model in that example. Option 3 is based on an institution that has identified they have 100, or potentially they already had 70 HE students that require licenses, and the HED pack, student license pack, offers the best price point. But what I really want to draw your attention to here is that we've licensed this on a 10-month basis. So back to my earlier example, this could be a customer where we set up a VIP on the 1st of July and the 1st of September is when they've initiated their order. So when we look at 100 against a unit cost of £112.50, it's obviously just over £11,000 for the year. And that's over £2,000 saving when we look at the second example, which also had 100 of the student pack, but based on 12 months. So by gaining better efficiency, this establishment will be saving over £2,000 a year, and there is no downtime for when the students do not need the licenses. Again, as I mentioned earlier, give us a shout. More than happy to go through your specific requirements and use cases on a case by case. So value-added services, I've mentioned a few times your ability to benefit from proration, and I keep giving the example of a VIP starting July 1st and us ordering on September the 1st. To get a start date on a Adobe VIP agreement, we have to order a single license, and we will give a free single license to establishments to provide a start fixed date for VIP agreement. There's no commitment off the back of that. But that's really good for customers. It allows you to set up agreements and gain the flexibility should you wish to move your license onto a different agreement date. We also offer bespoke portals, and these are really good if you have high numbers, if you're lacking resource internally, if you're looking to obtain funds back to subsidize the cost of your commitment to Adobe. So these portals can allow staff or students to either procure a license or just to take payment, and we can also allocate the license. So we can ensure the student or staff is given access to the software. We can collate funds which we give back to a central body, or we can just charge an admin fee just to remove the administration from the customer. And we also do loads around curriculum support, how Adobe integrates in curriculum. Obviously, due to COVID, this is mainly web-based and virtual at the moment, but there's lots of webinars. For example, how Adobe Rush can help support an English GCSE type curriculum. So really good content, particularly for faculty, for curriculum staff, people who are looking how they can better utilize the software, and particularly with distance teaching, there's some really good content on Adobe's Education Exchange we promote that can help support you in these challenging times. And you should keep your eyes out, particularly if you're doing anything around journalism. There's a really cool campaign coming out with Sky in conjunction with Adobe, and a great way to give students some sort of access to real world examples, and some really cool prizes are going to be up for grabs as well. That's everything from us today. So as I've mentioned, if you have any questions, any queries which we haven't covered, or you'd like us to elaborate on anything, feel free to reach out to us on these generic details here, or likewise get in touch with your account manager and we'll be more than happy to help. Thank you all very much for listening. Take care.